In 2008, one of the world's leading international development economists, Jeffrey Sachs, wrote that mobile phones and wireless internet will prove to be the most transformative technology of economic development of our time. So far, unfortunately, it is only the developed countries that have fully capitalized on the potential of ICTs. According to the World Economic Forum 2015 Global Information Technology Report, or GITR, the economic value generated by the internet in aspiring countries is $119, compared to $1,488 in developed nations. There's a lot of work that still needs to be done to fully exploit the potential of ICTs, beyond just the laying down of infrastructure, but the facilitation for an environment in which ICT use and innovation can thrive, and also for the creation of content that is both relevant and actually results in economic gains. Botswana specifically has poured millions into ICT infrastructure. 70 million pula into the East Africa submarine cable system, 250 million pula into the development of the West African cable system, and more recently, 300 million pula into the Maung Ngoma optic fiber link, to name a few projects. The country, however, continues to slip in GITR rankings, from 103rd before down to 104th out of 143 countries this year. This most recent report goes on to indicate that although Botswana is ranked slightly higher than the average middle-income country when it comes to political and regulatory environment, critical indicators such as individual usage, affordability, social and economic impact, as well as infrastructure are below par. This is the context under which the Ministry of Transport and Communications hosted this year's ICT Pitso at the Gaborone International Convention Center under the theme Embracing ICTs for a Transformation Change. The Pitso is a valuable platform through which government can liaise with those on the ground to better foster an ICT space that will have relevant, realistic and impactful solutions for the country. It is also a platform to benchmark our efforts against those of countries with much more experience in this field.
The third area that we work on is in terms of supporting collaborative innovation, ICT entrepreneurship.
In 2013, we declared to be the world's most advanced IT nations.
Tonight, we bring you just a taste of what was shared in those 2 days through conversations with the Minister of Transport and Communications himself, as well as the CEO of the Botswana Communications Regulatory Authority, BOCRA, later on. Thank you for joining us. We promise it will be worth your while. Re a amogela gape mo lenaneong la rona la First Issues jaaka re sekaseka tse di amang tlhabololo ya tsa maranyane go tokafatsa itsholelo ya lefatshe la rona. Tona ya dipalamo le ditlhaeletsanyo Re Tshenolo Mabeo wa lephata le le neng le biditse Pitso ya tsa maranyane kgotsa ICT Pitso maloba fela jaana o re sedimosetsa ka ditiragalo tse dišwa mo dikganyeng tsa go tshwana letse. Re simolola ka go mmotsa gore go tla jang gore dipatlisiso di tswelele go kaya fa lefatshe le le kgakala mo tirisong ya maranyane kgotsa ICT. E tswa goromente a dirise madi a le mantsi mo ditlamelong tsa one.
Kana la ha re na le infrastructure e le gore le goromente re e dirile. Sone go gakolola gore kana re e direla batho gore ba e dirise. One area e leng gore we should focus on it ke gona gore re rute batho ka ICT, how they can utilize ICT to empower themselves. So thuto eo santse re le go moragonyana, but re mo lenaneo simolola le gone go dikolo o bona gore bone ba rutang ma-teachere ba rutiwa ka ICT, so that ha ba ruta bana ba tlhaloganye ba loge mo dikolong ba itse gore ba ka dirisa jang maranyane one yana go tokatsa matshelo a bone. Re le goromente tswana ke go itse gore re tlhoka the private sector to do investment go beeletsa mo ICT, ka gore re beile mo go yone private sector gape gore ditlamelo tse ba di tseye ba di ise ko bathong. Remember, as government we are just facilitators, but like I'm saying, we've provided that infrastructure such that we make an enabling environment or a conducive environment for private sector to thrive in, and but say ICT ba bona gore ba ka idirisa yang go hitela ko batswaneng. So that partnership is very, very important.
Irile mo puong ya gago wa bolela ka fa o tshwenyegileng ka teng gore batswana ba duelela ditirelo tse di boleng jo bo ko tlase kgotsa poor service. Sebe sa phiri e ka tswa eleng?
Sengwe se ile gore gongwe of recent gongwe se sa re tlhotsisa o bona gore ditlamelo dia sentle go bathong ke kana dilo tsa rona tse di dirisa metlakase jalo jalo mme jaanong jaaka o itse re na le kgwetlho kana ya motlakase, tlhaelo ya motlakase, there's load shedding e na nako le nako. Obviously ha go na le kgaogo ya motlakase, it affects on the services tsone tse re eletsang gore di gore go bathong. Selo se sengwe it's our operators ba eletsang go nna le di-site teng gore mo ba di tower tsa bone, transmitter and so forth, ba na le kgwetlho le bone in terms of getting that land ya go tsenya one maranyana a bone. Mme hela se sengwe gape se ile gore gape ke kgwetlho mo go rona, re na le dikgwetlho ko our data center ile gore ke yone tota mo kwatla wa yona ICT when we looking at government as a whole. Kana gakologela gore re le government re tshwana ke gore le batho ba na le access to ditlamelo tse. Mme ano ha ile gore gongwe re santse re na le makgwere mangwe gone ko our data center e hella e kgoreletsa le gore ditlamelo di a yang ko bathong ba ile gore ke bone ba ile gore ko bohello ba tshwanetse gore ba dirise ditlamelo tse. Se sengwe se ke se bona gape gongwe le kgwetlhonyana ke gone gore mo gongwe ditlhotlhwa tsa rona itlhela di le ga godingwana. Ke bua ka investors ba ile gore ba dirisi tshwanetse gore ba reke dilo tse mo go bone. Data bundles we itlhela ditlhotlhonyana tsa teng di le go godimonyana go dira just an ordinary call tlhela go le go godimonyana gongwe le gone hela gongwe o letsa ka kontle ga le hatshe la rona o le kwano o le rakgwebo o batla gore o dirisanye le borakgwebo ba bangwe tlhela o ditlhotlhwa tsa rona di ha godimonyana. But that's one area that we're working on, not only as Botswana really as a block SADC. Sometime in June, we had a meeting, ministers responsible for ICT in Walvis Bay, where we talked so much and passionately about this issue. Me, irle ko helong ha khitho a mahatsi mangwe a le mane Botswana, Zimbabwe, Zambia, Namibia. Gore alko le tsamele go lebella tsone dio tsa borumi. Go bona gore prices in terms of wholesale, retail, di ka le ka go hukudiwa jang gore di ska di babalela thata ka gore kana re bua ka batho ko tlase ba ile gore ha go tura gore ba tshwanetse ba duele go le go tura mme ra re mo tseleng re le mahatshe a mane ne ga tere tsamaye re go lebella go bona gore re ka buisanya re le mahatshe a SADC go bona gore ditlhotlhwa tse di ka go kotsega jang. Tumelo ke gore re ka September ra jana mahatshe a mane ya ba ne ba hilwe this assignment ba e go reporta be ba simolodisa pilot project ya go bona gore ditlhotlhwa tse di ka go kudiwa yang.
Go na le ba ba setseng ba re thulaganyo ya maitlamo ke kgang ya molomo fela. A ba ba rialong ba iphetlhela lephata la gago?
Tsamaiso ya rona ya gore maranyane ra dirisa yang this maitlamo ICT policy tota ile beletse gone go bona gore re le hatsela Botswana. One, re rala yang one maranyane go bona gore a goroga yang ko batho. Not only that, re ruta jang le bone batho go bona gore they utilize one maranyane to better their lives. Ko bohelong ha re dirile jalo tsolo la rona ke gore dilo tsa rona tla simolla, for instance dikgwebo ke Haskai tla simolla go bona re khona go dira dikgwebo mo nakong e go kotsegile. Tla simolla go bona, for instance, the queue tse re di bonang tsatsi le letsatsi go all the different service providers because people will take advantage of ICT go bona gore ba e dirisa jang go tokahatsa ka ha re ba dirang ditiro tsa bone ka teng. Ke maikaelelo a rona as government ka gore ra itse gore ICT ke nngwe ya ditsela tse e leng gore ka di dirisa go bona gore re tswaka-tswakanya itsholelo a rona re le lehatshe jang gore re kgone go phadisanya le mahatshe a mangwe. O kgone hela gore re le ko lapeng, not necessarily ko officing, o bo ntse o dira tiro ya gago o theogetse o sa re nya ke emela gore ke tsamaye ke ko tirong. As part of that, we have e-government e leng gore through it re batla gore re ise ditlamelo ko bathong. One thing se e le gore gongwe batho ga ba ise ba se lemoge gongwe jaaka no o bua gore gongwe ke puo ya molomo hela gompieno ha license ya go e hela o mangwe a go a hela, you have that prompt mo cell phone ya gago e gore a re ka dikana lekgetho la koloi ya go ya hela. These are some of the spin-offs tse re di bonang from e-government.
Welcome back to First Issues as we continue to discuss the major themes and developments brought up at the recent ICT Pitso with various stakeholders. Up next is the CEO of the relatively new Botswana Communications Regulatory Authority, BOCRA, a parastatal formed by government to expand the reach of the former Botswana Telecommunications Authority to encompass additional services such as broadcasting, postal services and internet under one regulatory umbrella. Any complaints the public has that have not been handled satisfactorily by private service providers can be escalated to the authority. And to our surprise, our guest says it is a function that Botswana appreciate and utilize very well.
Botswana do come to us, but they only come to us as a last resort. But generally, where the service is at a level that is unacceptable, or they have been overcharged for the services that they did not believe that it was provided for them, they engage us, they ensure that we intervene. But lately, the number of complaints had not been as high as it was before. I think with the introduction some few years back of the third mobile operator in the country, we had a situation whereby people now had a choice of who they can actually use. And the good news is that there's now competition in the market. So if, say, for example, you happen not to be happy with operator A, operator B, operator C, you then decide where you want to go going forward. And I think as a result, the consumers actually, they've got a choice of where to go. But then, you can hear I'm talking about telecommunication operators, but you also have the post office, you also have the radio stations. And when it comes to the post office, we got the Botswana Post, and where possible, people do come and we engage the management behind the scene to say that there are certain things that they need to do in a proper way. The radio stations are the ones that are very interesting. We try as much as we can to be transparent, to make sure that where possible, they stick to the licensing conditions. There are conditions being set.
There's also the issue that even the minister brought up of the new directive from SADC on roaming charges that you, in your presentation, were also very vocal about. Could you share your thoughts as to the directive?
The mandate of SADC is to ensure that there is a regional economic integration. And obviously for SADC to succeed, there has to be a fair play. There has to be some degree of, country A, country B. I think in the normal economic sense, it's called the balance of trade. That is trade in services, goods and services. But in this particular case, it's services. So what is happening is that you find that in terms of SADC, countries, when it comes to roaming, you will find country A, country B charging one another the roaming charges that simply prohibits commerce. Simply, trade. The trade is not moving the way one would do it. But then we have an association called Communication Regulatory Association of Southern Africa called CRASA. We came together and decided that there has to be a harmonization in terms of the tariffs that are being charged, particularly on the roaming. And every country actually selected their own experts, and the experts actually came together. And we decided that just like it's been done in the European Union, just like been done in East African markets, that there has to be a common tariffs being charged for the citizens of the region. So regulators actually pushed this matter. And it went on and on and on and on until the ministers actually took a directive to say that it be done. But I must hasten to say to you that it depends on every country's jurisdiction in terms of the taxation, in terms of the infrastructure and whatever. So as a regulator, we have to ensure that at all times, and I think I was very vocal about it, that we protect our own, the licensee, those that we have licensed, to ensure that when they put their tariffs are in line with the regional tariffs, so that it's not like there's an imbalance between the two. But the perception sometimes is that, we go to South Africa, it's very expensive. But when you travel wherever you want to travel, not only South Africa, but anywhere in the region, your service provider will actually give you the information on the tariffs to say it costs you this much and whatever the case might be. So there has been some delay in some countries. As Botswana, we have always been ready to ensure that Roam like home is ready. But we cannot do it alone. But then in those meetings that we had, the four countries, Botswana, Zambia, Zimbabwe, and Namibia, because of the convergence in the Caprivi, we decided that we should actually take this project on and do an experiment or a pilot project. But then to do it, we had to bring the operators themselves to talk on a one-to-one basis, or what you call the bilateral agreement between themselves, so that they can now share the cost to say, it's costing me so much to provide the service, and the Botswana one do the same, and then they sign an agreement going forward. But I must also caution and emphasize this. The role of a regulator is to encourage and facilitate, commerce, is to facilitate services, is to engage, facilitate. Sometimes where possible, if things are not working, we can escalate to the next level. But the regulators by themselves, they must actually try as much as they can to resolve the issues of inter-regulators.
Throughout our program this evening, we've spoken of the millions invested into ICT infrastructure, such as undersea cables and the like. Many Botswana are, however, wondering how this investment has benefited them, especially as there are still complaints as to the speed and affordability of internet services. Mr. Peko addresses these concerns.
The Botswana government put a massive investment in some of these things, undersea cables. But I just want to give a simple example. When a dam is full of water, the water must go to the people in one or the other. One or the other. The dam might be full and you still have a drought, or you still have people with no water. The same thing with the undersea cables. So you have undersea cables, and they have arrived and they are there. But what normally happens is that we have what we call last mile. In other words, if you are in your home, you should be able to receive the internet the same way as you receive your electricity, as you receive water. So there has to be internet reticulation, or what you call the broadband penetration in the house. So the question is, in terms of the fixed broadband, which is in this particular case the ADSL, which is provided by one service provider, there were a limited number of fixed line operators in the country. So now this investment is coming. So the challenge now in terms of the broadband, we now have to make sure that Botswana are connected from homes. So you can now receive your internet via the copper that goes inside your house. So now that becomes a bit of a challenge. Now the number of Botswana now, they have what we call the mobile internet. So you are able to receive your mobile internet via your cellular phone. So as a result, as a regulator, what we have now decided to do is that there has to be a cap to say you shall not charge up to an X amount of money because of that. So as a result, we can see that since the investment, there has been a tremendous reduction in terms of services, in terms of the cost to the service. But as for Botswana, the only way this thing is going to benefit Botswana is when they have actually connected to the internet, particularly fixed internet at home. It shouldn't be sort of like a Gaborone or an Eben or a Yapi people. It should be just for everybody to have a phone at home and have a modem that will now open the world for you. And it doesn't really cost that very much because of the result of government having put the investments. So there's a lot of education that I think as a regulator together with the operators, they must actually tell the people as to the alternative to the mobile. But Botswana have actually, they have literally taken on the mobile technology than any other nation in Africa, if I may put it that way.
You also said we'll soon get to enjoy internet everywhere. How is this being facilitated? Who is doing it? And do we mean everywhere when you say everywhere?
Everything that you do must be done by faces. Then in our developmental agenda, we must look at what we call the quick wins. The quick wins for us is one, is tourism, agriculture. I think the general commerce. Now, let's put it this way. We now have to identify areas of a strategic nature, the public hot spots. As Bokra, we found that this thing is very, very important. We have engaged Bofinet to actually work with whoever they want to work with, and obviously Bofinet has got a license to be a wholesaler. And they actually won the tender to provide these services. So they will engage other service providers in terms of those that are given the license to be at the retail level to ensure that these hotspots are being done. But initially they will start in the urban areas and then they will spread around the country. So we'll look at Gaborone and then we'll go to Francistown, we'll go to Mau, we'll go to Lobaze, all the urban centers and the major villages to ensure that internet is readily available. Remember, there is also the 4G. We've got the 4G, which is the long-term evolution, which now gives you an opportunity to have faster internet in the country. So going forward, we believe that if we take it by phases and time is against us. I mean, really, if we want to be, our initiative of becoming a middle-income country, we need to implement projects quickly. And the best way we can do it is that if the strategic hotspot has been identified, then one would expect in totality that the next thing that will happen, there will be economic of scale. So there will be much of it, and then they might even be offered at a very subsidized prices. But when it comes to prices, I don't know when and how, but as time goes on, we'll announce accordingly as to how best these things can be done. But we obviously have to have internet everywhere in the country.